Hi, everybody. This is Penda James, and I am so excited that you have joined me tonight for a chat with my friends. I have someone that's really, really special who is joining me tonight. Her name is Sharnay Hearn Davis. She is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised on the Hill District, and she'll tell you a little bit about her story when she makes her grand debut in a few seconds. But Sharnay is going to talk to us tonight about lifting as we climb. So if you are new to my chats, my name is Penda James and I am the scribe coach. I am the owner of Inscribed Inspiration. And what I do is I help people to get unstuck, execute their goals, and inscribe their legacy. What these chats are doing is I'm calling this the resilience project. This was a way for me to connect with myself and get back to everything that I love, which is connecting people together. Now, I have some amazing friends, and I want my friends to meet my friends so that we can all do awesome, awesome work together. Sharnay is a doctoral student. She's married. She's going to tell you all of her awesome accolades, but some of the things that I want you to know about her is that when you think about people like Dorothy Hyde and Ida B. Wells, and you think about people like Mary Church Terrell, these are Sharnay's heroes. These are the women who made great strides in their community. They did amazing and awesome things to shape and shift the world. And that's what Sharnay is doing. That's who Sharnay is to a lot of people. She is somebody that we look to when we want to understand what's happening in the community. We look to her when we want to understand the language that people above us can't really explain or don't want to explain. She's a great go-between because she can speak to anybody. Like my daddy told me, you need to be able to speak to the janitor and the president, and that is Sharnay. So what do you want the people to know about you, Sharnay, that I didn't share?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sister Penda. This is super exciting. So, first off, I do want to apologize if you hear the baby crying in the background. Of course, she wanted to nurse before we actually 45 seconds before we went live. So, that's where we are. It is an honor to have for you to think of me in such high regard as we begin to prep for this call. And so I wanted you, if we can we share the picture of Sister Mary Church Terrell? I
Yeah.
think that is important for anyone who's watching currently now and someone who may watch in the future as a replay to know who Sister Mary Church Terrell is. One of my biggest passions is really to lift the stories of the everyday women, especially women of color, who the everyday person don't know, right? We hear the stories of Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks and Coretta Scott King, who are amazing, amazing women who were a part of the movement. But there are women like Mary Church Terrell, whose name we should know. So, as Sister Penda shared earlier, that's my passion and part of my God giving calling on my life is to say, how can I use the God given platform that He has given me to really lift the stories of everyday women of color, and how do I use the opportunities that God gives me to be that connector and that bridge to opportunities as I live and as I climb.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, Sharnay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm listening.
When you use the term sisters lifting as we climb, how do you define that? What does that mean exactly?
That's a good question. So, um, some people may heard bits and pieces of my story, but for the individuals who may not, I it was intentional for me to use the word sister. In 2014, I was a community affairs liaison under Mayor William Peduta, and I was responsible for working on the My Brother's Keeper initiative that came out of President Obama's administration. And during that time, I was responsible for facilitating a lot of the community conversations with corporate stakeholders and public officials and community members in general around how do we create opportunities that support the advancement of boys and men of color. And as an African American woman, I will always see that often when it comes to community initiatives, we focusing on youth, but no one ever focuses on their parents, right? So if you really want to get to the issues at hand and say, where how do we alleviate these issues, you have to work with that parent, because some of the outcomes were attached to the parents' lack of opportunities or whatnot, right? So if you're working on the creating, how do you make sure that the student can read at third grade level, did you first ask yourself, well, do you believe that that parent has everything that they need to make sure that they're meeting that outcome? And so when things like that happens, that's where my thought process usually goes. And during that time, and we'll probably share a little later, I was working at CYF, and I would have similar experiences as a caseworker. They'll come and say, here's this problem child. And I'm like, that child's not that's not a problem. That's a issue that is arising due to these problems in the household. And I'm always frustrated that nobody can problem. So the word sister really came out of me trying to identify ways to be communal, right? And to say there's a responsibility that we oftentimes owe to others, right? And then how do we take on that ownership to actually support that woman through her journey? And the word, go ahead. And I was going to say, the word sister for me was one, being communal again, but two, my way of saying, okay, how do I support this woman in a way that I would want to be supported, but also being intentional on saying I have a responsibility to help this person. And sometimes as family members, sometimes we love them and sometimes we don't. But as a sister, you always come back. Multiple layers.
So that just opened up so many questions. So the thing that I didn't watch the verses last night, but I know from growing up the sisterhood that those women have with each other. And because I went to the Motown Museum in Detroit, I know that during that time when Berry Gordy, I know they weren't necessarily a part of his brand, but those groups back in that time, they were friends and they did a lot of things together. So did you watch it? I guess is one question. And then was there a lesson I think that you got from seeing that camaraderie from them?
I watched for about 45 minutes, but I went back into the Twitter feed and then I was like, I missed when Gladys Knight told Monica and Brandy to work it out, right? To me, that was one of my biggest lessons that I took away, because as a millennial, right, let's use that, we're talking about millennials versus the Generation X, Generation Z, and how the differences, right, are within all of the different categories.
Yeah.
So for me, as I watched Monica and Brandy, everyone was like, there's shade there, there's not shade there. And I'm like, but just think about what they had to do to get to that point, whether it was shade being thrown or not. People don't understand the work they had to do in order to get to that point for their maturity to say, okay, let's do this together.
Yes. So
let's celebrate that first.
So you hit it for me right there, that when I think about sisters lifting as we climb, I think about I lived in Pittsburgh for 11 years, and I know that for me as a transplant, somebody who wasn't born and raised there, it was hard for me to build connections with people. And it was hard because people don't cross bridges and, all these cultural things about Pittsburgh. And so when you started Sisters Lifting as We Climb, it resonates deeply with me. And, we think a lot, in a lot of ways, we think alike. I worked for CYF too, so I understand that there's always a root. And so once you get to the root and you uproot the rotten thing, and all of the resolutions to the problem are in the family. So when I think about Sisters Lifting as We Climb, I think about the culture that you're in Pittsburgh, where the culture is that a lot of times Black women don't work together. A lot of times Black women see each other as competition, but you created something to allow us to come together, let our hair down, and support each other and clap for each other. Yes, y'all looking at an Athena Award winner, which is an international award. So Sharnay's amazing. Go back and just look at some of her stuff, and you'll see like she's not even 30 yet.
I'm 31. I'm 31.
Okay. Okay. Well, she just
I'm 30.
you seconds over 30. So when I think about Sisters Lifting as We Climb, I thought about last night as I was preparing. I thought about the verses, and I thought about the love, the genuine love that those women had for each other, and that's what you are trying to create. So how has this Sisters Lifting as We Climb been a thread throughout your life? Like, can you talk about what that has looked like for you growing up? Now you're an adult, you're a married woman with a baby, working on your doctorate. So how has this been a staple in your life?
Thank you for asking that question and sharing that you worked at CYF, because I will start with our staple of how you supported me before I even knew I needed it. And I was thinking about that all day, right? So I remember when I walked, I think you were still at the church, and I told you I just got employed with CYF as a caseworker. And you could always be like, come on, sis, let's do lunch. And me and Bernard, let's go have our power lunch. And you left, I never made that power lunch. We never had our sit down for have our power lunch. And then I think I always felt telling you, like vocalizing, and felt guilty about never having the power lunch. So I always wanted to support you every step of the way that I could, because I never showed up in that one way.
Ooh, those power lunches started for me because I was turning 40. And I wanted to do something to connect. So we are having a power lunch right now. So don't feel bad that we didn't have.
I don't feel bad, but I'm just saying I think that's how it rooted our relationship.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right. So because we had a relationship before them, but it was like you identified who you wanted to connect with, and they were all intentional. So on my journey, I watch individuals as well, and they may not started off as power lunches, but they were similar in the nature and the essence of what we were looking for to come out of it, and reach out to those individuals, Darcel Mackins and the Bernadette Carters, and reaching out to them and saying, how can I sit at your feet and learn, right? I'm this young, ambitious, back to Pittsburgh after graduating from college in 2010, and I just wanted to learn. I had all of this energy. I was involved in all the basically Black-led organizations up in Slippery Rock. So coming to Pittsburgh, how do I make the city of Pittsburgh my campus? And wanting to get back and involved because I had this energy, and it's like, this is my city. I'm a Pittsburgh native. And it's not only do I had the foundation of you're supposed to give back, but I also had the energy because I was actively involved in all the organizations on campus. And from that, individuals like Sister Ronell Guy literally took me under their wing and was like, okay, this is what I need you to know. These are the players who I need you to me, and this is how I need you to show up and support. So it's always, for me, I think looking back, and the Young Athena was nomination in itself. Our lovely sister Christy Offerman, to understand that your sisters sometimes may look like you, and then your sisters oftentimes may not like. But do
Yeah.
you even, or do you even have the maturity and eyesight to even recognize when that's a sister and when somebody may be saying your names in rooms that you don't even know exist, right? And do you
Absolutely.
trust? Can you let your guard down enough to let someone in that space to say, I see, I don't call it a weakness, but I see an area of improvement in your life, and this is how I want to use myself to help you become better.
Yeah, you do this to me all the time, and I sometimes despise it. um,
Because you don't recognize that you do it to me when it comes in the spiritual realm. And I'll be like, I didn't ask for your opinion, but thank you.
that's so funny, but that's what sisterhood is. You
Right.
know, I can be someone's sister when they can push me beyond my own limitations.
Did you write that one down? Say that again.
I can be someone's sister when they can push me beyond my own
I can be
limitations.
someone's sisters when they can push me beyond my own limitations. That's powerful.
And that's what you do. You create spaces for us as sisters to really be open and honest. You know, right now we doing things virtually and we had some really good but some really hard conversations in our virtual session on Saturday. And so I think when I think about sisters lifting as we climb, you know, I have one of my Wilberforce sisters in here, Kiana, Dr. Kiana, and we have this saying in Rites of Passage: when I see my sister, I see myself. And
Right.
so we don't go through something without putting ourselves in her shoes and seeing what she's going through. And so that's what I see, and I think that's what we need as Black women. What do you say?
I'll say yes to all of it. In addition to, I shared in a group in my past workshops that a lot of the workshops literally were birthed out of my pain. That's how I knew that it was ministry. Because I was like, God, you want me to do what? God, you want me to work with women? Me and my mom don't have a good relationship right now. Me and
Mhm.
my real sister, even as a teenager, we're in a season of mending our relationship. And I would say she is the best aunt to the world
Yeah,
of my daughter, and being able to be adults together and seeing her come into her own. And she just brought a house, and now it's even redefining how, when I created Sister Living as We Climb, how I define sister, right? Because it's now challenging me to be like, go back and look, well, you're being a sister to all of these women, but how did you show up in your familial space?
that's good. That's
Right.
really, really good.
So thinking about
That's her mama in the background, y'all.
familial, right? Having to be in a space so my mom could now support me, and it's making me realize and reflect on how she had to show up in the world by having me at 17.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of our
And
ministries are birthed out of our pain. I mean, that's why I do pretty much everything I do. All the books I've written, my last journal, everything. It was because I created what I needed. But to do it for myself and not have a space to share it means nothing. But
mm,
you created that space for us to birth what we need to help other people, but then on the other side of that, to bring other people out.
mm,
Yeah, so I just thank God for you, girl. You don't always recognize what God is doing in you, but yeah, just keep going. Just keep going.
thank you,
So
thank you. So the yoga thing really made me sit down and reflect. Um, it literally was like a 10-year reflection, 10-year look back in the mirror. I can't wait for them to repost the videos that was recreated from all of the nominees and the finalists. It just was like, there's no way that you can deny that that was yes, God used you, but it was nothing but God using me, right? So it's a
Mhm.
both and of saying, wow, like despite what I was going through, this is how God continued to use you. Now, how dare you not be obedient to know what you're supposed to do? Because if He used you like that, that was happening. So you gotta keep going.
I can't like, how dare you not? Like, how dare you not? This, how dare you not? This is
Like,
kind
set him and get off the way. Keep going.
I wanna share some of the feedback that you have in the comments.
Yeah, because I can't see anything, and I'm so tempted to get on my cell phone so I can read and watch the
Funny,
things.
so you'll just have to go back and read the comments and make comments on people's comments. But Latifah was saying, yeah, when we talked about being a transplant, that it is challenging as a transplant. Somebody asked if your brand is global, and yes, I told her yes. She said she likes your fire, and we had a conversation about the what sisterhood is and what sisterhood looks like. So, and your friend Tracy Johnson said, "Let the Lord use you, Sharnay. Let the
Yes,
Lord
ma'am.
use
She's
you."
another one that be all in my business. I'd be like, Tracy, sit down. I did not ask you, but thank you. I receive it.
This is hilarious. So, I want you to speak to people who need to know what they need to do to lift other people as they climb. So, as we were kind of preparing, we talked a little bit about how some people made it up the ladder, but they didn't help anybody after them. And then they were at the top and they wonder why nothing is moving forward because they're not reaching back. So, would you talk a little bit about what that looks like? What can we do? What tools can we implement so that we can do both? We can climb and we can lift.
That's a good question. I'm gonna go back, throw it back to you to say, when you said that Pittsburgh was a challenge, what type of supports do you think that you needed in Pittsburgh before I answer?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I'm in a sorority, so I had sorority sisters. I had support in that way. I was a part of a big church, so I had support in that way. But professionally and personally, as Penda, I didn't have a lot of sisterhood. And so I needed what you have, like what you're creating now is those workshops and opportunities for me to think bigger, because not that I was around people who thought small, but I didn't share my dreams with anybody.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, that's good. So in that, I will answer. I'm going to answer the question based off of what you shared.
Okay.
So my beliefs were that those things should always came apart from the organizations that we were already a part of. If you're a part of sorority, you should be able to find these type of gatherings within those type of networks. Whether you're in the church, you should be able to find these type of natural supports within the body that you attended. So
Mm-hmm.
individuals who don't know me, my whole family is within the church. I got pastors, ministers. My mama's a minister. I was the church girl. Joined church at the age 6. I'm now with this baby by my side. I've been doing more bedside Baptist, but it's about relationship, right? And so for me, I always, and I think this came up in our Saturday workshop too, right? So thinking around being a latchkey kid and how that influenced my life as well. So I had the desire to be in cliques, quote unquote, but never feeling like I belonged in those spaces. And as I went into my own personal professional development and really began to look at, well, I don't want to be a part of that because those individuals don't represent who I am. And how can I be intentional on seeking out different opportunities for my advancement? And then I did some of that through schooling and becoming a lifelong learner, as I've been calling
Mhm.
it these days. And then the other part was learning how to network and being okay with I may be the youngest in the room or I may be the only Black person in the room because I had the end goal. So the one first tool I would say is being comfortable with networking with others who doesn't look like you. The second one I will share is then also identifying where you're spending your time, right? We're spending a lot of our time windows. Nothing against sororities, and please don't say Sharnay said sororities is bad. No, if I had the opportunity to pledge, I probably would have in undergrad. Then I got older and I was like, it's not for me because everybody I knew I was already connected to. And I was like, love y'all. I don't got time to give y'all no dues. Let me help me find I'll donate to the cause, but I know all y'all. So what I need to pledge for. Um, is to really identify how that organization is benefiting you and is a mutual beneficial relationship. Oftentimes we're in organizations, whether it's professional organizations or um, things of nature that they're just, whether it's a relationship, right? Oftentimes they may not be mutual beneficial. So
Yeah.
really going back and really having that critical self-reflection and saying, am I getting what I needed or what I thought I was going to get out of this organization, out of this relationship, out of this friendship? And then being intentional to say, okay, how do I create those new opportunities to get what I need?
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I would say it's jumping out, doing things that pushes you outside of your comfort zone. Um, One of the things I was always thinking about now, how we're having this conversation, and I like to be behind scenes. I was like, I hate being on video. I don't like my voice. Um, but thinking about how many new relationships that was going to be birthed out of us having this conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
So thinking about what that looks like and being intentional on then cultivating authentic relationships. So the workshops, I always never let you all share your names first because I'm in the process of trying to be intentional on get to know that individual before you know their name, what they do, where they work at, and say, I can relate to you on the losses that we all experienced on 2020 due to COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, you'd be like, remember when you said this? Yeah, girl, I forgot your name. What's your name? Oh, Penda, let's connect. Find me on LinkedIn, right? So it's based off of a commonality versus who you are, what you do. Let me get something from you because I know you got it versus, oh, hey, sis, it was so good to meet you. So good to spend this quality time. I can't wait to look forward to get to know you more.
So you're looking to create those authentic and genuine connections with people, which I think is important. And I wanted to go back to when you were talking about being a latchkey kid. I was also a latchkey kid. And when you said that, what it made me think about is as a latchkey child, we had different responsibilities. So we couldn't
You're
hang
older.
do everything. We had to go home and make sure we were home and the door was locked. And so
Right.
when I was in high school, I worked 2 jobs because I went to a school that was a co-op high school. So I went to work 2 weeks and I went to school for 2 weeks. So
I never knew that. I did too. I was doing student teaching in 12th grade.
we had different responsibilities. And like we said, we say all the time, the life of a prophet is a lonely life. So we're not gonna have a lot of people around us because of the anointing that's on us. We can't have a lot of people. And I'm an empath. And I think you're an empath too. So you can
I am.
feel what other people feel. That's why you create stuff to make it so that they can be better.
All day.
So I just anything else you want to add and tell people how they can connect with you and connect with Sisters Lifting as we climb or
Says any other questions in the feed?
no other questions. Latifah is really the only one that's chatting with us right now. But Michelle gave you a purple heart, Michelle Walker. And Latifah says self-reflection is key in networking. That is real. I never thought about that. that you have to think differently when you're connecting with somebody. And I think that's something that Vern teaches us too, that when you walk into a room, you're not necessarily going because you want to get from somebody in the room. You want to think about what can you give to them too.
Right. And so even if you are going into the room to say which could you get out of it, but being intentional to say I did my research so I could even know what's possible.
Yeah. So this is good. Okay, Kiana, I see your sisterhood is both personal and non-personal. We travel and journey at different times, so we can't always take others on our journey for multiple reasons. We're not on all the same schedule of growth. One of us might grow and thrive personally and professionally, and the other might have the desire to, but it's just not her time. That's good. But when
That's
it
good.
comes to that sister who wasn't ready and it wasn't her time, sister number one has to go back and reach for her.
That's what I was saying. I think we started talking about Harriet Tubman, right? So
Yes.
that's right. So there always will be someone who has to go along the journey before you, right? So they
Yeah.
can know what dangers are ahead, how to navigate systems, and then come back and say, these are the life lessons that I learned. And so you can take my words of wisdom or you can navigate on your own. But I traveled this thing, Harriet Tubman, right? I traveled this thing a couple times and I was successful and I came back and I got battle scars and wounds. And I learned that if I would have went this way, then I wouldn't have hit this obstacle, right? So there's so many lessons when we go back to see who our ancestors and even make it today to having those open conversations with women like we're having today to say there's so many lessons that we learn just by continuing to create authentic relationships.
Absolutely. Tracy said you have to be mindful of who you connect to and how both parties can benefit from it. Otherwise, it's an imbalance. So, my friend Diana taught me that too. She said, in our life, we need people above us that we're aspiring to, people with us that we're all aspiring to get somewhere, and people under us that we are bringing with us. And if we have too many in either level, then our life is in out of balance.
That's powerful.
Yes. And
The last question was how can people continue to get in contact with you?
yeah.
So we are going to say it. They say it till you make it clean and make sure that it sticks. We're in the process of working on a website, so the website will be coming out soon. We have one of the sisters in the network who's actually working on that. My husband doesn't like it, but you can find me easily on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Sharnay Hearn Davis. It's my name. Right now, I'm in the process of accepting everyone. And the Facebook page, we have a public. The Sisters of Nurse We Climb Network has a public Facebook page that you can follow and staying up to date. We will be pushing out new content more and more. And then we also have a private Facebook group. The private Facebook group is where I encourage the women to continue to network without me. One of the things that we did in the past was really trying to be intentional on connecting a woman and to share. But as the group continued to grow, I think the level of trust and vulnerability was like, I don't know if I could be really vulnerable in this space. So I'm trying to think about creative ways to get that group re-engaged. So if you have any ideas or would love to support, because we are in the growing stage and in the, I'm keep calling it the Sisters of Nurse We Climb 2.0 stage. So we are in the focus group stage and beginning to strategize with our next 5 years looks like as we are celebrating doing this work for the last 5 years this month. So it's
Well, you're doing awesome work and people's lives are being changed. And so I just want to thank you for joining me in this live chat so that the people that I know can meet some of the awesome people that I know.
And that's fun. Can we do another one soon?
Yes, we can. So before we go, I just need all of y'all. Anytime you think about Sharnay, I need you to just send up a prayer for her so she can finish her doctorate and her dissertation and share this post if you know somebody that needs to think about sisters lifting as we climb, tag them in it and tell them let's talk about sisterhood, because this is an important conversation I think that we're having. Thank you for watching and sticking here with us. Usually I only try to talk for about 20 minutes, but we had a really powerful conversation and I didn't want to cut us off because I think some of the things that we're talking about are important and they are necessary. So thank you all for joining us. I love you.
Thank you.